Imagine swinging a club so poorly that you end up with a fused neck at 27 years old.
Yeah, and not 67, 27.
Right, 27. Today, we are looking through the diagnostic stack you sent over. And I mean, it paints a picture of the golf swing that is honestly terrifying if you don't understand the mechanics.
Oh, absolutely. It really is.
Because usually when we talk about a mechanical breakdown, we expect a level of, engineering precision, like a belt snaps in a car engine, you point to the jagged rubber, and the problem is obvious.
Right. It's a visible mechanical failure.
Exactly. But reading through your sources, that clarity completely vanishes on the golf course.
It becomes incredibly murky. And that's because we are not dealing with a simple machine here. The notes you compiled are just a phenomenal stack of data. I mean, we're looking at clinical case studies on spinal fusions, physiological research on stress responses, Titleist Performance Institute coaching manuals, and even insights from the legendary Mo Norman.
It's a massive range of material.
It is. And what they all show is that a swing fault might look like a grip issue on the surface, but it could actually be a structural failing in your upper back. Or, even a hidden psychological stressor literally hijacking your motor cortex.
Which is exactly why we are acting as your personal sports science team today. We want to take all this data you've gathered and uncover the ultimate blueprint for your golf performance.
Yeah, we really need to bridge that massive gap between biomechanics, anatomy, and mental stress.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll understand what is actually happening beneath your skin during a swing, why it causes everything to break down, and most importantly, the physiological mechanisms you can use to hit further, score lower, and play without ending up on an operating table.
And to build that blueprint, we really need to establish the physical foundation first, because a fundamentally bad setup destroys your power before you even initiate the takeaway.
Right.
So we have to look at where power is generated and how it travels.
Well, let me jump in there for a second because I want to challenge the focus on the upper body. I mean, modern coaching places a massive emphasis on ground reaction forces.
Right. Okay.
We are constantly told to push into the turf, to create vertical thrust, to clear the hips, to generate power from the ground up. So why are we hyper-focusing on the shoulders and the upper back in this stack of research?
That's a great question. And the ground reaction force data is entirely valid. The hips and the lower body are, without a doubt, your primary engines.
Okay.
However, the energy generated there has to actually travel up the body to reach the club. This is what we call the kinematic sequence.
Right, the chain of movement.
Exactly. The energy moves from the ground, through the pelvis, up the torso, into the arms, and finally into the club head. If there is a dysfunctional link anywhere in that chain,
The energy transfer just bleeds out.
it bleeds out completely.
Yeah.
And according to the research you provided, the shoulders are responsible for generating about 20% of your total club head speed.
Wow, 20%.
Yes, but that power relies entirely on scapular stability.
The scapula being the shoulder blade.
Right.
So we're basically talking about the platform the shoulder operates from. I look at it kind of like a cannon.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. So the scapula is the heavy concrete base, and the arm is the cannon barrel. It doesn't really matter how much gunpowder or, ground reaction force you use. If the concrete base is wobbly, the cannonball loses both power and accuracy.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the physics at play. And a major misconception we see in the clinical data is how players try to artificially fix that wobbly base.
How so?
Well, they believe good posture simply means standing upright and pinching their shoulder blades together as hard as they can.
Which feels strong in the moment, like it feels like you are locking the whole system down.
Right. It fakes stability in the short term, but it is highly detrimental to the shoulder joint's actual function. It actively restricts your ability to rotate naturally.
So what happens instead?
What happens is that players often fall into what the medical community calls upper cross syndrome, or the C posture.
The C posture.
Yeah. This involves rounded shoulders, a forward head position, and excessive thoracic kyphosis, which is basically that severe rounding of the upper back.
Which brings us right back to that terrifying case study from Florida Gulf Coast University you mentioned earlier. The 27-year-old golf professional who required an anterior cervical discectomy and fusion and ACDF surgery.
Having your neck fused before you're even 30.
It's wild. And the sources indicate this was caused by a very specific combination of biomechanical failures, right?
It was a perfect storm, honestly. This player had an exaggerated backswing that forced his spine into a reverse spine angle.
Okay, so that means instead of tilting away from the target at the top of the swing, his spine was leaning aggressively toward the target.
Exactly. And then he combined that with early extension on the downswing.
Let's define early extension really quick because I think a lot of players just view it as standing up too quickly.
Yeah, that's a common misconception.
Right. It's actually the hips thrusting forward toward the golf ball on the downswing instead of, clearing and rotating backward.
Precisely. And when your hips thrust toward the ball like that, your body's geometry changes completely. To keep from falling over and to keep your eyes focused on the ball, your upper body has to lean backward and tilt.
I see.
Now, combine that severe tilt with the C posture we just discussed. The forward head posture of the C posture alone can place up to 27 pounds of force on the cervical spine.
Wait, 27 pounds. So his neck is taking the entire brunt of the swing force.
Every single swing.
He's thrusting his hips forward, tilting his spine back, but forcing his head to stay down to look at the ball, all while rotating at professional swing speeds.
The torque is just immense.
Yeah.
He literally forced his cervical spine into extreme high-speed flexion and rotation. And doing that repeatedly led to severe radicular nerve pain, massive weakness running down his arm, and ultimately the need to surgically fuse the vertebrae.
Wow. Okay, so we know that faking good posture and losing your spine angle can literally send you to the surgeon.
Yeah, it's not a joke.
So since we know what we want to avoid, let's look at what the torso and the arms should actually be doing to move together safely. The notes you sent reference Mo Norman heavily here.
They do. Mo Norman had a golden rule for this, which he called disconnection. He stated that if the torso is moving, the arms should be moving.
Together.
Always. The arms should never operate as an independent unit. When a player's posture is poor, perhaps standing too crouched over or reaching too low for the ball, the arms physically disconnect from the rotation of the torso.
I see the concept there, but how does that translate to the actual swing plan? Like if my arms are disconnected, what does that practically do to the path of my club?
It leads directly to what coaches call a flat shoulder plane.
Okay.
So in an optimal swing, your shoulders should turn perpendicular to the tilt of your spine. But when your posture is compromised and your arms disconnect, your shoulders tend to turn far more horizontally. They turn flat.
And that causes problems.
Huge problems. This horizontal turn pulls the club entirely out of the correct position, leading to a massive loss of power. To even make contact with the ball, you are forced into severe compensations on the way down.
Let me visualize this for you. If your arms are lifting without your shoulders turning properly, you essentially hoist the club straight up in the air.
Right.
From that position, gravity and momentum take over, and you end up throwing the club straight over the top on the way down. You're swiping across the ball, producing a weak, slicing ball flight.
Exactly. So looking at the TPI manuals in your stack, the coaching fix actually starts before you even move the club.
It starts at address.
Yes. The cue is to feel taller. By lifting the spine slightly, you naturally allow the shoulders to pull back into a neutral position without artificially pinching them.
Nice.
Then, the drill is to feel as though you have a towel tucked right under your trail armpit.
I have to ask about that towel drill, though, because if I'm clamping a towel under my arm, doesn't that create rigidity? I feel like I'd swing like a robot trying not to drop it.
That is the trap many players fall into. Yeah. You aren't clamping down with maximum force. It is a gentle connection.
Okay, so just enough to hold it.
Right. The goal is to keep the bicep relatively close to the chest, ensuring the arm folds naturally as your torso rotates rather than, flying open. It maintains that synchronization Mo Norman talked about.
Got it. And then we reach the transition into the downswing, which the sources highlight as a critical moment for separation, specifically chin and shoulder separation.
Yes. When players get to the top of the swing, the panic move is often to violently pull the handle down with the shoulders.
Which ruins the sequence.
Exactly. Instead, the sequence requires the lower body to shift forward slightly. That lower body shift allows the arms to organically settle or drop into the slot.
And as they drop.
As your arms drop, your lead shoulder naturally moves away from your chin.
So you aren't forcing the arms, you are letting gravity and biomechanics do the work. You shift your weight, the arms fall into the slot, and the separation happens as a byproduct. Now, this covers the ideal mechanics. But your notes take a slightly darker turn here into the anatomy of what happens beneath the skin when we lack the mobility to execute those mechanics, specifically shoulder impingement syndrome.
Yeah, impingement is incredibly common and widely misunderstood in golf. It is essentially the narrowing of the subacromial space in your shoulder.
Okay.
And when this space narrows, it brutally pinches the supraspinatus tendon.
Let's unpack that subacromial space for a second. I picture it like a low-clearance tunnel on a highway.
That's a good visual.
The tendon is a cargo truck trying to drive through that tunnel. If your stabilizing muscles in the upper back are weak, the roof of that tunnel literally caves in a few inches. Now, every time the truck drives through, every time you swing, the roof scrapes and frays the top of the truck.
Yep.
And over time, the truck is just destroyed.
That caving roof is clinically known as scapular dyskinesis. The serratus anterior and lower trapezius muscles are simply too weak to properly elevate the shoulder bone, the acromion, out of the way during motion.
So the tendon gets continuously scraped.
It does. But one of the most fascinating aspects of your research is a hidden cause of this structural damage that has absolutely nothing to do with swinging a golf club.
This blew my mind.
It's how you sleep.
Yeah, that part stood out to me. The idea that you could be ruining your golf swing while you're unconscious.
It's crazy, but the data shows that sleeping with your arms elevated above your head physically pinches that rotator cuff tendon for hours at a time.
Hours. And the physiological mechanism of what happens during those hours is severe.
It really is. The prolonged pinching restricts blood flow, which causes microdamage and actively kills the cells within the tendon.
Wow.
And those dead cells don't just disappear, they release toxic chemicals into the surrounding tissue.
So you are literally marinating your own shoulder in toxic cellular waste every single night.
Exactly, it leads to chronic inflammation. Over time, the structural integrity of the tendon degrades so significantly that you can suffer a spontaneous tear from a relatively standard movement, like, reaching for a seatbelt or taking a practice swing, with almost no acute trauma.
That is terrifying. So how do we rebuild the roof of the tunnel? Because looking at the practical applications in your notes, the standard gym routine is actually counterproductive.
Oh, highly counterproductive. Traditional beach workouts, heavy bicep curls, bench presses will not solve this.
Right.
In fact, overdeveloping the chest muscles can exacerbate the forward rounding of the shoulders, making the C posture even worse. You need functional rotary strength.
The functional exercises listed here focus heavily on the upper back and core stability. Things like back-to-wall scapula slides, which activate the upper back while forcing you to flatten your lower back against a wall.
Those are great. Also, miniband wall walks, ensuring you keep the shoulders depressed rather than shrugging them up to your ears.
Right, fighting that urge to shrug.
And the half-kneeling landmine overhead press is also highly recommended in these manuals for building anti-rotation core stability.
And finally, the open book rib cage drill. The goal there is to restore thoracic mobility, right?
Exactly. The logic is simple. If your mid-back cannot rotate efficiently, your lower back and your cervical spine will be forced to take the brunt of the twisting forces.
Which circles us right back to the fused neck.
Exactly.
The entire system has to share the load. Now, let's pivot, because the second half of your diagnostic stack addresses an entirely different saboteur. Let's say you've done all the functional workouts.
Okay.
Your C posture is gone, your scapula is stable, your kinematic sequence on the driving range is flawless. But you step onto the first tee or you face a downhill 3-foot putt to win, and the entire system instantly disintegrates.
This is where we bring in the bridge between biomechanics and psychology, the physiological reality of the fight-or-flight stress response.
We tend to think of stress as just an emotional state, like we just tell ourselves to calm down, but the research you compiled treats stress as a profound, measurable physiological event.
Because it is. It's deeply physical. When you feel the pressure of competition, your endocrine system floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline.
And what does that actually do to the brain?
The data indicates that this chemical flood actively reduces plasticity in your motor cortex. This creates a phenomenon sports scientists call cognitive motor interference.
So to be clear, when I miss a crucial shot under pressure, it's not necessarily because my grip physically slipped or because I consciously forgot my swing plane.
Yeah.
It's because the surge in cortisol literally blocked the signals in my brain from allowing my muscles to move smoothly.
Yes, exactly. The motor cortex is neurologically impaired by the stress hormones, and this impairment manifests as chronic muscle tension, which clamps down on your blood vessels, severely restricting blood and oxygen flow to the muscles.
Which sounds disastrous for an athletic movement.
It is. When oxygen flow drops, you lose your proprioception, your innate awareness of where your body is in space. Without proprioception, your rhythm is entirely destroyed. Performance coaches refer to this as the stress effect.
The stress effect.
Yeah. It is the biological mechanism underlying choking and the yips,
And the sources delve into Jungian typology here, utilizing the mental golf type framework, which suggests this stress effect doesn't manifest the same way in everyone.
Right, your underlying personality dictates your physiological response.
It dictates both how you process the stress and where the physical tension takes root. Take introverts, for example.
Okay.
In the Jungian model, they process energy internally. Under stress, they experience vagal withdrawal. They overanalyze, their system essentially freezes, and they suffer from mental burnout. The tension tends to lock up their upper legs and neck.
Yes. Whereas extroverts, on the other hand, seek external validation. When the pressure hits, they go into sympathetic overdrive.
They rush.
They rush their routine entirely, trying to escape the uncomfortable moment. The tension for them often creeps straight into their hands, resulting in a grip that is far too tight, completely neutralizing their wrist hinge.
But regardless of the personality type, the ultimate physical result is the restriction of deep abdominal breathing. Once your breathing becomes shallow and shifts to your upper chest, your power and fluidity just vanish.
Completely vanish.
So knowing this, how do we actually fix it? Because telling an athlete to take a deep breath and relax is terrible advice. It rarely ever works.
It never works in the moment.
Right. If stress is a chemical flood that impairs the motor cortex, how do we systematically train the nervous system to process that chemical flood just like we train our physical mechanics?
This is where your research on biofeedback is just revolutionary. There is a detailed case study in your stack regarding a 21-year-old Division I collegiate golfer.
Yeah, let's talk about her.
Researchers utilize virtual reality-assisted heart rate variability biofeedback, or HRV biofeedback.
Walk us through the exact mechanism of that. How does breathing at a specific rate alter a chemical flood of cortisol?
During the study, they monitored her cardiovascular system while she played virtual golf under simulated pressure. Over 10 weeks, they trained her to breathe at her precise resonance frequency.
Resonance frequency.
Yes, for her specific physiology, that was exactly 5.5 breaths per minute.
So it's not just a random slow breath, it's a highly calibrated rhythm.
Exactly 5.5 breaths. When you breathe at your resonance frequency, you maximize your heart rate variability. Physiologically, this stimulates the bear reflex, which directly activates the vagus nerve.
And the vagus nerve is the primary control center of your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system.
Precisely.
I see. So the vagus nerve acts like a biological brake pedal. By breathing at 5.5 breaths per minute, you are physically stepping on the brakes, which halts the production of cortisol and adrenaline, forcing the body out of fight or flight.
It actively overrides the sympathetic nervous system. It restores oxygen flow to the motor cortex, returning your proprioception.
I look at it like installing a high-end magnetic shock absorption system in a sports car.
I love that.
Yeah, because the biofeedback training doesn't stop the potholes and speed bumps from existing. The stress of the tournament, the bad lie in the bunker, the wind, those stressors still happen.
Right, you can't control the environment.
Exactly. But the vagal tone absorbs the physiological impact of those stressors, so the performance remains completely smooth.
It protects the engine from rattling apart. And the real-world results from this 10-week intervention were staggering. On 9 holes of virtual golf, her score dropped from a 46 to a 30.
A 16-stroke improvement on 9 holes just by calibrating her autonomic nervous system. That's incredible.
Furthermore, her average driving distance increased from 170 to 184 yards. Her putting statistics improved dramatically, and her self-reported somatic anxiety, the physical feeling of tension before a shot, decreased significantly.
So by training her nervous system to efficiently process physiological shock, her biomechanics were finally unblocked and allowed to perform at their true peak.
The structural hardware and the neurological software have to be updated together.
That really crystallizes the entire blueprint you've assembled here. Achieving peak performance on the course is not about beating balls into the dirt until your hands bleed. It is a deeply interconnected system.
It really is.
You have to optimize the kinematic sequence, ensuring energy transfers smoothly from the ground up. You have to protect your cervical spine by addressing the C posture and maintaining a neutral spine angle. You must build functional rotary strength to stabilize the scapula, preventing the subacromial tunnel from collapsing on your tendons. And crucially, you have to actively train your nervous system through methods like HRV biofeedback to absorb stress so your brain doesn't paralyze your motor cortex.
You summarized that perfectly.
Since you provided these notes to us, the mission was to give you that holistic understanding, and I believe we've mapped out exactly how these systems rely on each other. If you enjoyed today's deep dive, please subscribe to our channel and share it with fellow golfers, coaches, and PGA professionals. If there is a topic you would like us to research, analyze, and discuss in a future deep dive, feel free to send us an email or connect with us through LinkedIn. Whether your interest is golf biomechanics, kinematics, ground reaction forces, swing mechanics, putting, coaching, club fitting, technology, or sports science, we would love to hear from you. Our team will review your submission, conduct extensive research, analyze the available evidence, and may create a dedicated deep dive, article, video, or testing project based on your topic. Thank you for being part of the eCoach 360 community. But before we wrap up today, there is one final concept from your research that we want you to consider.
Yes. We spent a lot of time discussing the diagnostic breakdown of the swing itself. But consider how your daily off-course habits are actively writing your scorecard long before you reach the course. The way you're sitting at your desk right now, perhaps rounding your shoulders forward into that C posture, or the elevated position your arms fall into when you go to sleep tonight, might be the exact physiological reason you slice the ball into the woods tomorrow. The physical adaptations your body makes never really turn off.
The machine never turns off. We'll see you on the next deep dive.